What's happening, fandoms? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here,
we react to music videos and shows.
Today we're going back to new Rockstars. Eric Voss giving us the Ahsoka breakdown. This is the finale.
Yeah.
Lots of important stuff happened here.
Did we miss anything?
I think we probably missed everything.
I
think I understood some of it, but I really want to see what Eric's got to tell us because he has a whole team and he does his research, and we're going to figure it out. Here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Star Wars Ahsoka Episode 8, the finale, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, a title that totally seems inspired by C.S. Lewis's The Lion,
like you said.
And I'm choosing to believe that Baylan Skoll is our Aslan, because Ray Stevenson was my hero this season.
What I thought
He's
too.
right where he should be, on the hand of the Father. From the Argonathi gods of Mortis, Clone Wars Night Sister callbacks, and other great Star Wars Easter eggs, let's break down this episode scene by scene for the details you missed.
Boy.
And you know what? A huge thanks to all of you for joining us this season of Ahsoka. It has really been my honor to share my Tuesdays and Wednesdays with you all. And if anything in these videos has inspired you to watch stories a little bit more deeply, or just has made you feel seen as a nerd
Don't
who
cry,
looks too far
Eric.
into things, me staying up until 2:39 a.m. writing these analysis has been well worth the effort. So thanks again, and let's dive into the episode. Okay, we open with Kevin Kiner's ceremonial drum beat.
With that,
Kiner Music did all of the scoring.
Kudos to the work Kiner has been doing all this season. These drums and the hint of bass and organ pair perfectly with this opening shot of Thrawn's Chimera placed on the Peridia Fortress, as the gothic church organ of Thrawn's Majesty pairs with the grassroots dark magic of the Night Sisters. Really, this opening shot is just perfectly bisected by a center dividing line formed by the fortress and the fold of the Chimera, its underbelly patterned as it was in Rebels. Thrawn orders Enoch to dispatch 2 TIE fighters to the Jedi location, wanting to cover his bases.
I've watched many an Imperial officer make the same assumptions about the rebellion.
Yeah, he's subtly referring to officers like Governor Price from Rebels, who made a number of mistakes, underestimating a small number of Jedi, including when she bombed a fuel depot that killed Kanan Jarrus, but allowed Ezra and Sabine and Hera to escape. But Thrawn also admits,
Even I fell victim to the heroics of a single Jedi. Never again.
he's likely referring to Ezra Bridger, whom Thrawn allowed to board the Chimera in the Rebels' final episodes just to face defeat when Ezra summoned the Purgle. But I also like to think Thrawn might be referring to his time with Anakin Skywalker, documented in Timothy Zahn's 2018 Thrawn Alliance, a really great read that's a dual timeline story about Thrawn partnering with Darth Vader on a mission to Batuu during the Galactic Civil War, and yes, Batuu, that is a location in Disney's Galaxy's Edge. But this story also flashes back to a Clone Wars era mission between Thrawn and Anakin Skywalker. So yeah, this is around when Thrawn begins to surmise that certain qualities about Vader totally remind him of that strapping young Jedi he went on that mission with. And it is why I think when he learned that Ahsoka Tano's master was Anakin, he went, oh. I just love the idea that Thrawn left that forever haunted, that despite his brilliant military mind, he remains befuddled by Jedi and their weird culty ways. Speaking of weird culty ways, the three great mothers thank Morgan Elsbeth.
She who heard our dreams.
Give her the gift of shadows.
Come forward.
Interesting that they say our dreams, as in they actually subconsciously called to Morgan while they were sleeping. I have a theory about that I'll get to later. They tell Morgan,
You shall be rewarded. The gift of shadows.
yeah, you hear that spooky echo following it? Of shadows. Sounding like the voice of Night Sister spirits already being invoked for this ritual. They chant,
Do you pledge yourself to the sisterhood,
Your life.
to the magics, to the old ways?
Do you abandon your old life for this new one? Your
Ooh, boy.
Your life?
yes, this is the same exact Night Sister baptismal creed that Mother Talzin spoke to Asajj Ventress in Clone Wars Season 4, Episode 19, Massacre.
Do you pledge yourself to the sisterhood?
We're not there yet.
Yeah, we'll get there.
And the old ways. Do you abandon your old life for this new one?
Wow. So similar.
Your life.
Asajj Ventress was the Dathomirian female Force user mentioned by Anakin's recording last episode. She's actually the one who gave him that scar. This Night Sister baptism happens in the episode when Dooku and Grievous come to Dathomir to wipe out.
Look how many
most of the
lightsabers he has.
I know.
The creed, "Do you abandon your old life for this new one?" is spoken by Actropa, who is based on the Greek fate who cuts the thread of life. So she's asking Morgan, and God, can we just acknowledge that her name is Morgan? It sounds like a name some drunk girl yells across a party. Morgan, I thought you were gonna date me. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. Actropa is asking Morgan to end her old life so a new one can begin. And then your loyalty to your life is spoken by Lachesis, the fate who measures the thread, as Morgan's loyalty to the Night Sisters is something expected to run the duration of her life, which unfortunately we'll see this episode
It's pretty
ain't
short.
that long. Whereas Mother Talzin levitated Asajj's body with green Night Sister sorcery, it looked awesome. They ain't got the budget for wire work here, so instead they just kind of like burn Morgan's face like Harry Potter on Professor Quirrell's face, scald in some green fire to make Morgan's facial markings more pronounced, similar to theirs. But really the coolest thing about this is the sound design. When Clotho first steps up to Morgan, we hear voices and whispers of past Night Sisters working their way into Clotho's hands.
So eerie.
You
That way.
jumped
I
when
jump on that.
In her face, we actually hear these guttural moans. Maybe it's because I just watched 1990's Ghost, but this reminds me of the sounds of the shadow demons that drag evil souls to hell, which they actually created by pitching down and stretching out the sounds of babies crying.
That's right.
They conjure this sword.
The blade of Talzin.
The Blade of Talzin is the weapon carried by Mother Talzin when she dueled Mace Windu in Clone Wars Season 6, Episode 9, The Disappeared Part 2. Talzin conducts a ritual on the moon Zardosa Styx to extract the living force from Queen Julia. Julia, you bet. Talzin was hoping to become more powerful than any Jedi or Sith. Jar Jar helps in this episode. But Talzin ends up dissipating in some green mist, and she would actually later go on to die while trying to save her son Maul from capture in the Son of Dathomir comic. But this hilt of the Blade of Talzin has a pale white color and a black pommel, which do match the color tones of Talzin's face and the other Great Mother faces. Perhaps her entire spiritual essence lives on inside this weapon. But why do they reward Morgan with the sword? Perhaps these fates foresee Morgan having to die a warrior's death and sacrifice herself so that the rest of them can escape. This blessing is a curse in disguise.
Yeah.
Why it's called the Gift of Shadows. And isn't it interesting that between Morgan and Sabine and Ahsoka, the rescuers of the people who are stranded on this planet are the ones who have to trade places with them.
Yeah,
We hear
that's
the classic Star
wow.
Wars klaxon
Okay.
alarm blaring.
Like that.
And two TIE fighters flank Thrawn as they depart. Yeah, I am ready to see this guy
That
as a villain of a
was-
Star Wars movie. So the timeless episode, The
man.
Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord must absolutely be a nod to C.S.
Yeah,
Lewis'
the Witch.
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe,
The
and the Chronicles
Drove.
of Narnia series.
Yep.
The Warlord,
I knew
probably
that.
referring to Thrawn. The Witch, probably Morgan. And the Jedi would be, well, it could be a few people. Ahsoka, Sabine, Ezra, Anakin. Remember, Jedi is also plural, so it could be all of them. Dave Filoni did say that when he first conceived of the World Between Worlds, he got that name from the wood between the worlds in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh,
Ezra
Yep.
builds a
nice.
new lightsaber hilt.
No, that's not gonna work. Look,
Not going to work? What are you talking about?
the blade emitter's too narrow.
Too narrow. This seems like a meta response to the Rebels viewers who complain that the lightsabers on the series were too narrow. This would technically be the third lightsaber Ezra constructed for himself after his original one with the blue blade and then the new one with the green blade in later seasons of Rebels that Sabine now carries. But where would Ezra have gotten the kyber crystal for this blade?
Yeah.
Would he keep a drawer of kyber crystals handy? I just think it's a bit odd because Hu Yang, of anybody, would know that the Jedi pairing with their kyber crystals is a sacred process that determines how well the lightsaber channels their connection to the Force. But, you know, whatever. Sabine and Ezra tell Hu Yang that Kanan Jarrus taught Ezra how to build a lightsaber, and Hu Yang remembers Kanan.
I told you, I taught almost every youngling at the Jedi Temple, including your master. Clever boy Caleb was, very curious.
He calls him Caleb.
Yes, he calls him Caleb, as before he used the alias of Kanan Jarrus during the Rebellion era, he went by Caleb Doom. Hu Yang also says of Caleb's shyness,
Who could blame him? Those were troubling times.
Yeah, this is great because it acknowledges how weird it must have been to be a youngling during the Clone Wars, which I really appreciated this season of Ahsoka Episode 5, exploring how messed up it is that the Jedi deployed child soldiers. And remember, the season premiere of Bad Batch shows the heartbreaking moment Caleb Doom lost his master Depa Billaba, and how the member of the Bad Batch, Hunter, allowed Caleb to escape after Caleb did an insane Morpheus-style force leap across a waterfall that Ezra nearly recreates this episode. Huyang presents Ezra with a specific bladed mirror with his disc around it, matching the one that Kanan Jarrus, aka Caleb, had at the end of his hilt. Huyang says,
I had 2 of those. Kanan took the one, the other I held onto in case he ever needed it.
Now Ezra's blade is blue once again, like his very first saber, bringing him full circle with the very first Kyber crystal that he got during his moment with Yoda in the Lothal Jedi Temple that was technically the world between worlds early on in Rebels. Huyang reveals that Ahsoka became concerned that Sabine was training to be a Jedi for the wrong reasons.
At the end of the war, the Empire purged the entire surface of the planet, killing hundreds of thousands.
Her family?
We're all lost, sadly.
Yes, he's referring to the Night of 1,000 Tears, first mentioned in the Mandalorian Season 1 finale, and then shown in the Book of Boba Fett Chapter 5 when Moff Gideon's forces dropped fusion bombs on the planet. And we learn that this happened at the end of the Galactic Civil War, so sometime around the Battle of Endor, maybe before the final battle of that war, the Battle of Jakku, that Moff Gideon pulled a real shitty late sucker punch on Mandalore. And Ezra asks about Sabine's family because, he spent a lot of time with the Wren family in the first couple episodes of Rebels Season 4. He knew them. Huyang says that Ahsoka feared that Sabine would reach her full potential and become dangerous, which sounds like Ahsoka recognizes how Anakin losing his mother Shmi is really what started his path to the dark side. So it wasn't really Sabine's failure, it was Ahsoka's fear that caused that student-teacher relationship to fall apart. Sabine and Ahsoka, though, finally discuss Sabine's decision to give Baylan the map sphere, and Sabine says,
Sorry. No.
Yes, we know from Han and Leia and Empire. I know, it's Star Wars for I love you. Ahsoka says,
Over the years, I've made my share of difficult choices. Often no one understood my reasons, except my master. He always stood by me.
Yes, we're reminded of the time when Ahsoka left the Jedi Order at the end of Clone Wars Season 5.
I believed in you. I stood by you.
I know you believe in me, Anakin, and I'm grateful for that.
I understand wanting to walk away from the Order.
I know.
A line that many over the years interpreted as Ahsoka possibly hinting that she knew about Anakin and Padme. But also, I know, it's Star Wars for I love you. Ahsoka asks,
Have you kept up with your training?
I try. I do.
She's only been gone like 2 days.
Yes, of course, the nod to Yoda's famous do or do not, there is no try. Inside Thrawn's TIE fighters, we hear the Sinar targeting system beeping from the original trilogy. Now, while these TIEs are aiming for the T6, from the wide overhead shot, you can see that they first hit the no-T trailers beneath it. So much for the T6 hovering over them as cover. Sabine runs into the cockpit of the T6, and seemingly for no reason, she shoulder checks who That's probably intentionally of Ortizo being told that they would do a camera shake in response to that blast raining sparks through the cockpit. But the special effect, I guess, comes too late, or maybe the shoulder check comes too early. But either way, I like to think she's just mad at Huyang for talking all that shit about her Jedi skills all season. Look at Huyang's face when she bumps him. He totally clocks it. Ezra and Ahsoka use the force to prop up the T6 as Sabine rigs up a little boost from the engine, and it kind of looks like Ahsoka gives it an extra force push to slingshot it, kind of like that extra push Sabine will give Ezra later. Now, I cannot explain why this TIE fighter pilot screams and covers his head instead of, quickly veering the TIE fighter out of the way, or why the T6's wings aren't totally obliterated when totally obliterating the TIE fighters. But, the T6 is temporarily out of commission, and actually it makes the same engine shutdown sound effect from the Lucasfilm audio library that they used for the Falcon when it got tractor beamed into the Death Star in A New Hope. When Enoch reports to Thrawn about the TIE fighters, it's interesting that Thrawn says to consider all the TIE fighters lost and to mark the captain for a citation. This gives us a sense of the discipline with which Thrawn commands his forces. But then, interestingly, Morgan gives some parting words to the Night Trooper volunteers.
The blessing of the Great Mothers shall protect you in battle against the Jedi.
Yeah, this blessing we see later is actually going to be a resurrection curse. And Thrawn confirms.
Those are the volunteers. They were made aware.
Yeah, think about it. Thrawn could have just ordered troopers to go into battle, but these ones were offered the option to partake in this experiment to keep the Jedi on the planet for as long as possible, even if that meant death and zombie resurrection. Perhaps part of the Night Sister spell is that those who get reanimated have to first consent to it happening prior to their deaths. Ezra says,
Ron found this place. He woke up the witches, rebuilt his starship.
woke up.
Interesting to learn that the witches were in some kind of hibernation state when Thrawn arrived, and he woke them up. I assume it was a sorcery base because Thrawn's not a sorcerer. It would have just had to been like beep, 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 beep. Hey, wake up. Perhaps the caskets we thought we were seeing are actually a type of cryo chamber that anyone could just be awoken from. And that all of these Dathomiri are just sleeping in suspended animation.
Look at all those things.
In episode 6, we're right. And the witches were fleeing Peridia from that mysterious entity that's calling to Balin. It would seem, based on this episode, that entity was the Mortis gods. So there is some history there that right now we can only guess at, but perhaps there was some conflict between the Night Sisters and the Mortis gods, and that most of the Night Sisters got the hell off the planet, moved to another galaxy onto the planet Dathomir, but some stayed behind in a kind of suspended animation in case those fleeing Night Sisters ever came back to Peridia. Now, of course, they didn't. Morgan was the first one to do that, and Thrawn found them first and woke up their 3 leaders, who then called their last living descendant, Morgan Elsbeth. That could be why they told Morgan, you heard our dreams, because they were sleeping, an asteroid projecting to her. So again, it might not be caskets they're transporting, but rather cryopods, suspended in, I guess, maybe a less severe form of carbonite. Ezra says he was afraid to come here alone, and Ahsoka responds,
well, you're not alone anymore.
This comes back later in the big moment with Sabine.
And you will die here. Alone.
Not alone.
Not alone.
In both cases, one cannot help but think of Gandalf providing backup at the Battle of Helm's Deep and Two Towers, and our man Carl Urban Amber came in with the line heard from heaven.
Theoden King stands alone. Not alone. Go hit him!
Thrawn commands to bombard them with turbo lasers, and the 3 evade the blast, breaking ankles, reminding me of Kanan dodging Thrawn's bombardment of Chopper Base on Attilan in the Rebel Season 3 finale. So Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine combine their
so many Clone Wars spoilers.
And there are more Sith Urkatat letters around the frame of the gate.
It's okay.
Actually, Zen
we get a little
on
preview.
Twitter was wonderful to begin translating this for us, finding the word rain, and from there, I tried to translate the rest of it. I think the next 2 words are last for all. So rain, last for all. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is part of the passage that Tommy J. Wall translated a couple weeks back. Raise or praise Kujet, ruler of all, may his reign last for all time. Kujet being the evil ruler of the ancient Zepho race from Jedi Fallen Order. But is the word praise Kujet, or since we don't actually see the P, is it raise Kujet? Because they are headed to Dathomir, home of Kujet's tomb, and maybe the Night Sisters plan to resurrect the ancient Zepho force-wielding sage of Kujet. The Night Troopers fire upon Ahsoka and Ezra and Sabine. Sabine actually manages to deflect a few shots with her saber, and I feel bad for this guy. One of the Night Troopers totally trips on the steps despite nothing hitting him. You know, actors struggling to move around in Stormtrooper armor and helmets is kind of a long Star Wars tradition, dating back to the guy in the 1977 Star Wars who bumped his head on the door on the Death Star. But sensing that Sabine isn't really feeling her lightsaber, Ahsoka tells her to switch to her blasters, drawing out all the Night Troopers so that, you know, she can just take turns shooting them. Ezra force pushes one, and then he slides down. It looks like he slashes one in the butt. Then Ezra force pulls the last 2 into Ahsoka's sabers.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I love
Night
it.
Troopers was female, and Ahsoka definitely seems to be enjoying this kill. Way too much. Meanwhile, the Great Mothers chant some weird words. These are the same exact words of the chant of resurrection performed by Old Daka in that Clone Wars Massacre episode. And they're doing the same thing here, resurrecting the Night Troopers as zombies! And Kevin Kiner samples this particular music. Take a listen. Aha! This is Camille Saint-Saëns' 1874 Danse Macabre, a famous musical riff that comes up a lot in What We Do in the Shadows. I love that show, but I remember it from my favorite episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Hush. By the way, this is one of the best gags of the show, where Buffy has to pantomime stabbing with a stake to kill the gentleman, but it looks like something else. And I feel like sampling the song here might even be an intentional Buffy reference, because Sarah Michelle Gellar, who is the wife of Kanan voice actor Freddie Prinze Jr., and kind of a member of the Star Wars family because she voiced the seventh sister in Rebels.
I did not know that.
Death appears at midnight every year on Halloween, calling forth the dead from their graves to dance for him while he plays the fiddle. So that's why the song begins with the solo violin playing the tritone, which was known in the medieval times as the Diabolus in Musica, or the devil in music. So yeah, it is October, folks. Happy Halloween. Ahsoka is ending with this classic spooky needle drop as witches resurrect zombies. I love it. So green light beams from the Night Sister's eyes and glows from under the stormtroopers' helmets. Ahsoka asks Ezra if this has happened before, and he oddly says, no, this is new, which is weird because in that Rebels Season 3 episode, Visions and Voices, Ezra and Sabine do fight some green Night Sister spirits in Maul's abode on Dathomir, spirits that possess Sabine and Kanan. So it's kind of something he's seen before, but I guess he hasn't seen like dead bodies reanimate. But again, my favorite part of all this is how it sounds. That growl is so intense, it actually causes the helmet speaker to peak and distort. Like even the tech in this helmet doesn't know how to filter this inhuman scream. Ezra gets grabbed on the staircase and Sabine can't get a clean shot with her blasters to save him, so she has to use her lightsaber and she gets a clean kill. And then from here, she smoothly deflects 3 more shots. It kind of seems like Ezra being in danger is what brings the Force out of her the most. That actually gives a double meaning to this line.
What's your excuse?
I missed you.
He's not just joking, like, I miss this kind of banter, I miss us. He's literally saying the reason I didn't keep up with my training is that I had no one to use the Force for until now. So the Chimera docks with the Eye of Sight. It does look a lot like the Jedi starfighters with their hyperspace rings in the prequels, but just on a much bigger scale. Thrawn tells Morgan,
so cool.
Get on board the ship, which would be problematic.
One of them does.
We require a little more time.
This is such a cool acting choice by Lars Mikkelsen. Like, he begins to say something, and then he just decides in the moment to stay silent and let Morgan fill the subtext. That subtext being, I need you to volunteer to stay behind and hold back those Jedi. Thrawn says goodbye with,
for the Empire.
Yet, as he walks off, Morgan whispers,
Pull Dathomir.
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds like these witches are ultimately not forever loyal to Thrawn and are really just using him to pursue their own goals. So Thrawn's defeat by many arms surrounding him in a cold embrace may occur on Dathomir someday. Ahsoka and the others run into Morgan, and I like how Ahsoka instinctively puts her hand back to stop Sabine from rushing in, and I love the sound that the blade of Talzin makes when it gets ignited.
So crazy.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I heard a force push.
I wonder how they made that sound.
Vibration that slows down, and then at the end, these little flute bursts. Yeah, their fight is mostly fun to watch, really just to listen to this dialogue between Kevin Kiner's instruments. It's like all the animals and Peter and the wolf getting in a melee. And I was curious why, if Morgan's whole mission was to stop the Jedi from getting on the Chimera, why she would just let Ezra and Sabine go right past her. But it's really because Ezra and Sabine run into what look like a couple of really tall, Winklevoss-sized purge troopers, who have also been zombified, as when Sabine blasts away chunks of this helmet, there's definitely snarling corpse mouth underneath. But Sabine summons a lightsaber with the Force and kills that trooper with a clean head stab, kind of like Kylo Ren's finishing move against the Praetorian Guard in The Last Jedi. Sabine helps Ezra pay no mind to the gap from that fortress to the departing Chimera, giving him that extra little Force push. It's crazy. We do hear the Force theme. It's really fun. Actually, Kanan, I remember, used a similar move in the Rebels Ghost of Geonosis episode, but that was a much smaller gap. Meanwhile, Morgan's Blade of Talzin severs one of Ahsoka's hilts. Whoa, this is one she's had for a while. It's a big deal to lose it. And we get to see just some amazing stunt work by Diana Lee Inosanto, a longtime stunt performer and goddaughter to Bruce Lee. She is so much fun to watch, and I'm gonna miss seeing her in Star Wars. And as Sabine returns,
unless she's not gone,
pissed. She screams, "Kill her!" And really, that's just her anger because her master, Thrawn, left her alone to die. So she feels pissed that Ahsoka's mentor-student relationship wasn't severed the same way hers was. So it rattles Morgan, and that allows Ahsoka to get the upper hand. She goes on the offensive. Sabine, meanwhile, clears those night troopers with her lightsaber and her blaster together in tandem, fully incorporating Jedi elements with Mandalorian ones. Ahsoka finishes the duel. She drives Morgan's blade into the ground, snatching it from her, and then double swipes her with the lightsaber and the Talzin blade.
That's so good.
When Morgan dies.
That,
1 minute. 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 1 minute
Yeah.
It's a ghostly wail as she falls to her knees.
And then an organ
This is what the
cord.
Ring Mother sensed to know that Morgan died, like a million Night Sister spirits screaming out in terror, suddenly silenced. Ezra gets to do one of his favorite things from Rebels, using a Stormtrooper comlink to impersonate a Stormtrooper and then disguise himself with Stormtrooper armor. Of course he does this. Thrawn orders to bombard the fortress, and Clotho gives him a look. She doesn't stop him from destroying their ancestral home, but it is another little example of these Night Sisters harboring a different agenda and possibly turning on Thrawn one day. Ahsoka and Sabine escape the Night Troopers by jumping off the ledge, seemingly to their death, but nope, like Marty McFly on the Flying DeLorean in Back to the Future Part 2, they surf the T6 and escape as the fortress collapses.
T6?
Thrawn chats with Ahsoka, saying,
I thought it was...
I know you.
Oh, no, it's a fulcrum.
Because I knew your master. One wonders
Mm-hmm.
just how similar you might become.
Yeah, to me, this is confirmation that Thrawn totally knew
Yep.
that Anakin became Vader. And then he says,
Perhaps this is where a Ronin such as you belongs.
Ronin were masterless samurai in feudal Japan, and of course, since the Jedi have their roots in samurai culture, it just makes sense for the term to be used here for Ahsoka. So I guess we need to add Ronin to this shirt. Warrior, outcast, rebel, Jedi, and Ronin. You can get this shirt, by the way, at nerdriot.shop. Like Moff Gideon has said many times before, Thrawn leaves with
Long live the Empire.
The Eye of Sion blasts off with a chimera, and you can see Thrawn is just so satisfied to be leaping off to hyperspace by his own choice for a change. Ahsoka and Sabine return to the Noti, and Ahsoka sees her bird, Morai. This is the representation of the Mortis god, the daughter that continues to accompany Ahsoka throughout her life, like it appeared in the World Between Worlds and Rebels. Vader saw it in the final shot of the Clone Wars series while he was searching for Ahsoka. The bird even showed up on a burnt tree on Corvus in The Mandalorian when we first saw Ahsoka in live action. So seeing Morai here tells Ahsoka that she is where she needs to be. They saved Ezra, basically traded places with him, but I think there is something more on Peridia for Ahsoka. So on the epilogue sequence, Shin Hati joins up with the bandits of Peridia, and then Balin appears on this massive rock formation, statues of the three gods of Mortis.
But one's missing.
Into the mountain. We see the father, who's pointing out to the distance. To the right, the son, and to the left, that statue was the daughter, but her head has crumbled away. There's actually a crevasse formed between her shoulder and the father, some distance between the two. So we have talked before about the Mortis gods. They are the three deities, really the holy trinity of Star Wars, celestials who come from another galaxy. Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan meet them in Clone Wars Season 3, and they return in mural artwork outside the Lothal Jedi Temple. The daughter gives Ezra access to the World Between Worlds, and the son's fist later destroys this portal. The father's statue is pointing to a distant mountain where we can see a pillar of light. At first I thought this was a volcano, but no, the light goes off on a specific frequency. It goes on and off, meaning it's some kind of artificial beacon. Now, the full visual reminds me quite a bit of Mount Doom in Lord of the Rings.
I did not see that mountain in the distance.
I wasn't quite sure.
Statues at the gates of Gondor along the river. But when Balin first looked out from the fortress tower in episode 6, he looked at a mountain range that was covered in fog. And I think that was the other side of this cliffside, or maybe the start of the range that leads to that distant peak. The something stirring that Balin sensed, we now know was connected to the Mortis gods. Might have been the gods themselves, their essence living on in the realm of Mortis. And this tells us that the Dathomiri, the Zepho, whoever else was here in Peridia must have known these gods, maybe worshipped them, had some relationship with them. I believe might have gotten their power from them, that they stole Force sorcery, like Prometheus stealing fire from the gods, and that they were punished for it. So I believe what the father is pointing to, what Balin's destination is a portal to Mortis. And why is Balin so connected to it? Well, notice if you look closely, that blinking light is the same fiery orange-red color as Balin's saber. And I don't think that's a coincidence. It could be a kind of mine or heart of Kyber that has crystals this particular color. And it's beckoning all Ronin wanderers looking for the pre-Jedi Order, pre-Sith Order source of all Force abilities. Now, could that pillar of light be a kind of geyser from the wellspring of life? Could it be Bendu farting? I don't know. This finale asks way more questions than it provides answers. But I do like how the shot lines up Balin with the father, because the father represented the balance between the sides of the Force. So if Balin is the father, who's the son? Who's the daughter? I think Shin could be the son, someone embracing the dark side, and Ahsoka then would obviously be the daughter linked with Morai. But all three of these characters are still on Peridia. Sadly, we lost Ray Stevenson too soon, but I would love to see this explored in animation, maybe in a Tales of the Jedi episode. We'll see what happens in the future. The Eye of Sion and the Chimera approach Dathomir. Waiting for them there again are Night Sister ruins in Kujit's tomb. tomb, and we see the full bulk of containers, and counting as many of these piles as we could. 3 by 5 by 4, that would be 60 per pile. Some piles are different sizes, but the grand total would be around 5,565 containers.
That's a lot.
These might not be corpses, they might just be a race of Night Brothers and Night Sisters that have been in cryogenic stasis that these witches want to use to repopulate Dathomiri society. Ezra pilots Baylan Skoll's old Eta-class shuttle that was in the hangar bay of the Chimera to the New Republic fleet, escorted by 2 A-Wings. Actually, the opening scene of the series was this ship landing on a New Republic cruiser to do some damage, but now it is Ezra, and Chopper is the first to recognize him. Ezra and Hera take each other in. It's so emotional. The ghost is behind them. We hear a synthy rendition of the Rebels theme song, but no Zeb appearance. Oh, come on. Really? We end back at the Noti camp, and Sabine sees Ahsoka looking out at the illuminated rings of the planet. Sabine, though, senses something, but then she shrugs it off as
nothing.
It's never nothing.
Shadows in the starlight.
This might be a nod to the new Star Wars book, Star Wars The High Republic Shadows of Starlight, that is now available today. And there's actually a little clue in the music if you listen closely here.
What is it?
Oh my God, Kevin Kiner included a subtle leitmotif to Across the Stars, Anakin and Padme's love theme from Attack of the Clones. After Duel of the Fates, it is my favorite John Williams composition from the prequels. Across the Stars. What a perfect song title to end this Ahsoka series on. Because no other Star Wars title has taken us across the stars quite like Ahsoka has. And Ahsoka gives a little nod to the Force ghost of Anakin, our shadow in the starlight, smiling at his snips for making peace with the student that she feared would make the same mistakes her master did. Ahsoka has now learned to pass on what you have learned. Strength, mastery,
weakness, folly, failure also. Yes, failure most of all. We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters.
Thank you so much for making time out of your week for us these past 2 months.
Good work, Eric.
Great analysis sources out there that you can find great Star Wars content from.
Are you
Screen
crying?
Crush, Heavy Spoilers, Star Wars Explained, The Den of Nerds, Emergency Awesome, the folks of the Ringer Network, and I hope that we at New Rockstars have been able to bring something to the table to enrich this experience for you. Please subscribe to all 3 channels of the New Rockstars Network, including the Break Room, where we do our Ahsoka After Shows Wookiee Leaks. Thanks to Noah Chen for helping me write and research this breakdown. You can follow me at EA Voss, follow New Rockstars. Thanks for watching, and I know.
Yeah. Oh boy. Good job, Eric. He stays up late every night that Ahsoka was on.
What?
Pouring through the episodes frame by frame to give us the good stuff. And we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I totally did not see that he was looking at an actual destination.
I saw that, but I didn't want to.
You didn't say anything. I didn't see it at all during our watch.
I saw it.
That was a little beacon. It just gave him another destination. And so that statue was kind of a midpoint in his journey as he was leaving his apprentice behind and heading towards something new. I mean, the revelation of that giant set of statues was a big deal. And so I was so excited about all of that I didn't even think about the fact that that statue was pointing somewhere. Wow, that's very cool. I'm glad we watched this because I might never have realized that. Ooh, boy. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I took out of this the most was the fact that also I did not notice that all 3 statues were actually there. I thought the sister was the daughter was completely missing. But
the body's there.
The body's there, and there's a crack.
No head,
No head. I didn't see that. All I saw was the father and the son.
Yep. The obvious one.
Thank goodness. I probably wouldn't have noticed that either. Very cool. The thing that, I mean, obviously it had to happen for timing and script purposes, but if the Jedi had just taken their ship and flown straight to the cruiser and to the fortress, they would have gotten there much earlier than if they were moseying along protecting the Noti. They were in more trouble because they were with them than if they had just left them behind.
Well, they got their stuff. Well, thank you again for tuning into our channel. Don't forget to give your love and support to new Rockstars. The link will be in our description below.
Yeah.
Thank you for your love and support to our channel. And also liking our videos to get the algorithm going. Thank you for subscribing to our small mighty channel to help us grow. Thank you again. And
See you in the next video.